Kathy Atkinson is the next person up, so let's welcome her to the stage. That's right.
Excuse me. So the last time I was on this stage, it didn't work out too well for me either. So I'm not real sure about tonight. Because back in 2011, I did have the opportunity, with a lot of encouragement from the Walnut Hills neighborhood, to run for city council. You can see that I didn't make it, so we're not trying again. You don't have to vote tonight for anything. But the Walnut Hills story, it's contagious. And everybody that came in front of me so far had a little piece of my story. I'll start with the fact that I never, ever, 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 ever wanted to live in Cincinnati. I had a work assignment here back in the mid-'80s, and it was the hardest thing I ever did. And I said, I will never go back to Cincinnati. And my experience in life has been such that the minute I say I'm never going to do something, the universe kind of chuckles a little bit. And then the chuckling gets a little heavier and a little heavier. And then there's this loud, uproarious laughter, and it just throws me right into what I said I'd never do. And that's what happened. So I found myself moving here in the end of the day after Christmas, 1994. And it was not an immediate love affair, but we were here. And I was here working with youth of the neighborhood, and because that was my history. Doing kids. I did kids. And after doing kids around here for a little while, we did have an opportunity back in '98 to hear that there was some neighborhood money to help build up the neighborhood. And I'd worked with a lot of folks throughout Walnut Hills and East Walnut Hills, realizing that, if we could get that money, we could make a difference. And so we started being oriented to what community investment partners were willing to invest. $500,000 in a neighborhood for 5 years. Wow, that sounded like a lot of money for Walnut Hills. And so we started going to these orientation meetings, and we heard people talking about things like economic development and physical revitalization, and I'm going, I do kids. I don't know what this means. It was a whole new language. It was very, very different. And so it came down to the fact that we still thought that we needed the money, we could use the money. So many of you don't remember, but once upon a time, we all had printed telephone books. Yeah, and so the way I began to make connections in Walnut Hills to find out who might help us apply for this $500,000 and then subsequently spend it was I went through the yellow pages of the telephone book. And I listed every address, every business in the yellow pages that had a 45206 zip code. One, because that's all I knew about Walnut Hills. And so with the help of some folks from the Williams Y, from Victory Neighborhood Services, from the Redevelopment Foundation, St. Ursula Academy, we started hosting meetings with all of these people and saying, hey, could we use $500,000? And they said, yeah, we could. Well, we had a little bit of a problem because most of us that were willing to work on it actually were working in East Walnut Hills, and we really wanted to serve Walnut Hills. The boundary was an issue. So back to Sean's premise of the night, community. Our sense in applying for that money back in 1999 was if we could build a sense of community between two neighborhoods that had absolutely no use for one another, the other things would come in due time. We'd have the physical revitalization, we'd have the economic development. So that was our story. We submitted for the grant. The funders came around and said, well, we were really going to fund two neighborhoods who were in transition. And those two neighborhoods happened to be, at that time, Price Hill and Northside. Those two neighborhoods were going to do economic development and physical revitalization. We were going to do human capital. And they came back and said, you know what? It's worth $500,000 just to see if you guys can pull off everything you think you can with relationship building. So for the next 5 years, We were able to bring people together. The very first meeting of bringing people together was a rather contentious meeting because we had folks from Walnut Hills and East Walnut Hills, and we had to name our initiative, and we had to come up with something that was going to be sustainable. So again, it was back to the phone book. The only thing that Walnut Hills and East Walnut Hills at that time could agree on was, again, our zip code, 45206. And that was the beginning and the birth of the 06 Alliance, which lasted for 5 years. And from there, we spent those times building relationships between and among businesses, organizations, residents. And by 2003, we were ready to write a shared vision, which became Vision 2010. It's a little later than 2010. We're still working on it, but those same people and new people keep coming to the table so that we really can be that community between two neighborhoods where everybody has an opportunity to live, work, play, pray, and prosper together. And that's 45206. Walnut Hills and East Walnut Hills.